Hey everybody, welcome to the Miss Camay Show. I am your host, Miss Camay, and I am coming to you from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, for those of you who don't know. I have the honor today of interviewing an amazing, talented woman, Miss Rickelle Tallent. Welcome to the show, Rickelle.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Great.
Good. So today we are going to highlight you. We are going to talk all about you and the fabulousness that you bring to the local Las Vegas community. I want to start with telling everybody that you are a registered and licensed dietitian, nutritionist, and exercise physiologist.
Yeah.
You're based here in Las Vegas. You teach nutrition courses at UNLV. That's got to be, a great experience. How did you come across teaching at UNLV? How did that happen for you?
I started teaching when I was doing my master's in exercise physiology. So at college level, you typically either have to have a master's or be credentialed to teach. And
Okay.
because I did, so when I got into the master's program, I had something called an assistantship. So you work a certain amount of hours per week for them, and most of your tuition is paid for, and then you get like a stipend. So I started off as a graduate assistant, but because I was already a dietitian and credentialed, I was able to teach under that assistantship.
Okay.
So I actually started teaching during my master's. I had 2 large nutrition classes that I taught, and then I did it every semester, and now I'm still doing it part-time. So
Nice. Well, UNLV is, it's an amazing campus here in Vegas. I hosted and facilitated an event there, not related to, anything at UNLV. It was something that I was doing separately, trading in the foreign exchange market. And great campus, just great people over there at UNLV. It kind of made me want to go back to college just for a minute. So you just recently launched your brand. You're an entrepreneur, and your brand is Tallent Nutrition and Wellness. Tallent obviously being your last name. And you provide in-person and virtual nutrition and wellness education and counseling for individuals, couples, friends, roommates, families, small groups, and large groups. And talk to me about your goals. We have a lot of viewers, a lot of my audience members are entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship is really kind of the next, wave of professional, work for people. They say if you don't have dreams and goals, somebody is going to hire you to build theirs, right? So talk to me about some of your goals that you have for your business. What are your 5-year goals?
I have a lot of goals. To be honest, I'm still trying to kind of, condense and see where I want to go first. But
Right.
One of my main goals for doing what I do is to just kind of help people get realistic and high quality information out there. We have a lot of nutrition related information out there, and even wellness related information out there that's just not very accurate, and for some people could potentially be dangerous.
Right.
So one of my main goals for whomever I'm working with is to just try and give them accurate information so that they can make well-informed decisions that would be best for them. That's another thing. Another goal of mine is when working with clients, whether it's an individual or a group, is to help them identify, a good plan and good goals that are realistic for them. I don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah.
What works well for some people won't likely work well for others. So there's a lot of perceptions out there about what's healthy and what's not. And I think it really comes down to what are your goals? Are they practical? And with your lifestyle and your preferences, what's going to work for you? Because there are a lot of different ways to create a healthful lifestyle.
Right, right. So you talk about giving evidence-based nutrition education. So elaborate on that a little bit.
So our field, so as dietitians, we're held to using, evidence-based or, research evidence to make recommendations. So rather than, I'm not just going to come out of nowhere with a recommendation for you as to maybe how to tackle your goal, whether it has to do with weight loss or preventing disease, managing disease, whatever it may be. However, even though we use the available evidence, you still have to take into account, clinical experience and the person as an individual. So it's a combination of all of those things that go into making recommendations for somebody.
Yeah, yeah. We chatted prior to our interview today, and we actually met at a networking event here in Vegas. And you were attracted to my platform of plus size pageantry, working in the plus size movement. And so, as I've shared with you, I have been, medically diagnosed as morbidly obese, quote unquote. And it's because I'm, 100 plus pounds overweight, according to, the BMI chart. Whoever invented that thing, it needs to be updated, reevaluated. And so, in the plus size community, in, pageantry and plus size fashion, plus size modeling, I've seen a lot of negativity, a lot of backlash in the movement, because people claim that we are, sending an unhealthy message, that we're promoting, unhealthy lifestyles, that we're promoting obesity. And, what is your take on that? What do you, like you said, everybody is different. Everybody, you have to take into account, who the individual is, right? Mm-hmm. So, what is your response to that negativity, and kind of that backlash in the plus size community?
Yeah, I think, and there's a couple sides to this, and I feel like both points of views have kind of good and bad to them. On one hand, you do see, I guess in the literature, the medical literature, for some people, the obesity can cause some substantial health issues, and it can impair quality of life, can decrease the lifespan. So I do think it needs to be considered for people, but right. I think we need to look at a lot more than just someone's BMI. There's a lot of BMI should not be the only thing being used to determine someone's health risk, because there's a lot of other factors that go into disease risk than just BMI.
Thank you for that. Thank you for saying that on the record.
BMI by itself, there's a lot of limitations for adults. It doesn't even consider gender. It doesn't consider ethnicity or, genetics. It doesn't consider age. And all of these things can impact, a level of like how healthful one's body weight may be as far as disease risk. It also doesn't look at the way body fat's distributed. So a lot of studies have shown that, obesity in the abdominal region is much more problematic as far as disease risk than just an overall amount of body fat. So, a lot of us females, not all, but we tend to kind of store fat evenly or even kind of down in like the hips and the legs, not just in the abdomen.
Right.
But then some people you will see are they call it apple shaped. It's a lot of the obesity is in that region. And that's shown to be really dangerous.
Okay.
For most people. But what we also need to consider too is, there's some things we just we can't measure, at least not at this point in time. I can't go in and tell everyone's individual genetics and what's healthy for them and not healthful for them. So that's where, thorough individual assessment comes in. What is the person's medical history, their family history, what is their weight history, what does their eating pattern look like, what does their physical activity look like. All of those things contribute to whether someone may be at high risk or low risk of developing chronic disease. But I think what's important too, as far as kind of stigma, not everyone who is considered a normal weight based off BMI is healthy.
Right.
Not everyone considered obese based off BMI is unhealthy. You see healthy obese individuals, you see very unhealthy normal weight individuals.
Right.
So, there's a lot of things to consider. I think it's important too, and this is more of a societal norm issue, not necessarily nutrition related, but separating kind of how we view people as people based off how they look.
Yeah. Say it again, sister. Say it again.
So, this is true for underweight people too, or clinically diagnosed as underweight. Some people who are underweight, some people are obese, they do have very unhealthful patterns related to nutrition intake, activity, stuff like that. That's true.
Yeah.
But there's also people who, no matter what they do, they can't gain weight or they can't lose a certain amount of weight. And it's not necessarily due to them being unhealthful. So either way, no matter where you kind of fall with weight, I think we just really need to educate people to, you as a person and your character shouldn't be defined by what you look like or your body shape.
Yeah.
They're separate entities.
Yeah. Great point. I love it. I've seen so much, especially in the plus size, world, the negativity and the body shaming, and it always amazes me. I'm not a dietitian by any means. I've always undereaten. I've had, nutritionists tell me, like, you need to eat more, you don't eat enough. And, people would look at me, like you said, and they would never make that assumption, or they would never have that conversation with themselves. Oh, Miss Camay doesn't eat enough. She's pretty thick. She's pretty healthy. But I've been told that for years, that I don't eat enough. And it is, like you said, a combination of so many things. Alcohol use, drug use, those things play a big role. And also mental health, right? Would you agree mental health plays a major role in, the health of our body? What would you say about that?
Oh, I definitely think mental health is a big contributor. I think sometimes too, this kind of chasing an unrealistic body image or body weight results in, poor mental health status. So depression, anxiety, a feeling of failure. Because for some reason, a lot of us, we tend to have this like weight number that we want to see on a scale.
Yeah.
And it's not always, sometimes it's like, where did that specific number even come from?
Right.
There can be a lot of reasons that you'll hear, but it's just sometimes that number on the scale isn't even realistic, but people focus so much on it that it causes them a lot of psychological problems.
Yeah.
But sometimes too, obesity or the opposite, eating disorders or anorexia, bulimia, a lot of times those are actually, well, especially with eating disorders, those are psychological disorders.
Right.
So you have to treat that before you can even really get into the healthful nutrition side of things.
Yeah. Great point. I remember going to the doctor one year. I think it was like my annual checkup, and the nurse, or the whoever takes you back, and like does your blood pressure, She was adamant to put me on the scale. Adamant. Just like, you have to get on the scale. And I told her, you don't need to weigh me. I don't need to get on the scale. I can tell you how much I weigh. And she, was going to cancel my appointment if I didn't get on that scale. And I had gone through a transition at the time. I'd relocated from Southern California back to Washington State. And, she basically forced me to get on the scale and weigh myself. And it was so detrimental to me. It was, and I've always been very confident. I've always, been very secure in who I am as a woman, and, whether I've been heavier or, weighed less or lighter. But it ruined my whole birthday, that day. It just was very, very detrimental. And I've never been big on the scale. I've never been big on getting on the scale. I've never been big on weighing myself. I understand that, there is a relation to my weight, to my health. But I so agree with you, about people focusing on that number. There's so much more to who people are and, their health than that number on the scale. Great point. Really great point.
Yeah, that's with kids, especially with anybody. I mean, sometimes it's you don't even need a scale. I mean, you can see certain improvements.
Yeah.
Some people do. I think for some people that visual, it does help them, like to track. But other people, like you said, I mean, I had issues with disordered eating at a disturbingly young age, and it all stemmed because our dance coaches weighed us. And I was probably 8 or 9. And the intent it wasn't a bad intent. I think there were a couple of girls, they were concerned that they were overweight, may have been due to, not eating very healthfully, but they didn't want to single anyone out. So their approach was, we will just weigh everybody so no one gets singled out. And they kind of said that, basically they said, if you want to compete or you want to be in this, event, you have to be able to fit into whatever costume or uniform it is.
Yeah.
If you're not able to, you won't be able to compete at that time or be in that event. So in my mind, I was small, I'm nowhere near overweight, but in my head, I was so fearful of not being able to fit in the costume or being over whatever weight it was that they thought we should
right.
be. That I started, like my mom one day, I think she said she saw me like hitting my stomach and not wanting to eat certain things. And I think I was 8.
Yeah.
And luckily, my main coach for competitions, she at the time was in a really popular strip show out here, Siegfried and Roy.
Uh-huh.
She unfortunately had seen many dancers who ended up, extremely ill from anorexia or bulimia. Some of them only in their 20s and were already hospitalized and no longer dancing. I mean, very, very sick. And luckily, she only had to say a couple of things to me, and it terrified me. She gave me real instances of what happened to her friends.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was enough where I didn't go down a road of like severe eating disorder.
Yeah.
But it still sticks with you,
Sure.
Like you become preoccupied with weight and body image and stuff like that. And it's very unhealthful. So I think especially with young kids and girls, we need to focus on health and fueling your exercise or your sport, not your body weight.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody, man or woman, boy or girl? What would you say to somebody who has found themselves kind of in that position where they are looking to do something, or they're, wanting to get involved in an organization or compete in a sport, and, weight, height, weight is a factor. and potentially, their height, weight, percentage is, kind of disqualifying them from that, their participation in that organization or event. What would you tell those people to help guide them and prevent them from going down that, eating disorder path?
I think I think education about how we even use food in the body is important. So why do we need to eat? Why do we need a certain amount of calories per day? And even the different types of carbohydrates and proteins and fats, what do they do in the body? Because when you look at it, so especially from a performance standpoint for sports, if you're not adequately fueled, you're not going to be able to perform at your best. Your body, it requires extra energy, which from food is calories. So, you need a certain amount of calories to perform your best. You need certain carbohydrates, and especially depending on whatever the sport may be, you may need even more carbohydrates than some people,
Sure.
So how does food fuel and help you in your performance?
Okay.
Because if you're working out and you're in a sport, those calories aren't going to make you fat. Those calories are actually going to give you energy to do what you want to do.
Okay, got it.
So I think if you can focus on not only the health benefits, but also the performance benefits, because especially in young people who are competitive, unfortunately, I think a lot of times you care more about the performance. As we get older, you start realizing all the health effects. So I think talking about both helps that young mindset. In realizing why you need to do certain things. There's also there is some evidence showing, restriction of calories can actually, affect your metabolism, and long term can make it harder to maintain a healthful body weight. So there's a lot of science and some of the new approaches to, they call it obesity, but really they don't focus on weight. They're focusing more on health. But this kind of yo-yo dieting, or these, severe caloric restriction, or cutting out carbohydrates, all of that kind of stuff results in almost like a more difficult time losing weight. So if you're doing that from very early on in life and you continue to do it in adulthood, you potentially could be getting yourself into a position where it is going to be hard to maintain your health and weight status.
Yeah, great point. Something that was huge for me was, like you said, understanding what food does in my body. So, something, and we haven't really touched on it, and it's probably, the next interview, but, how a person is raised, what environment they're raised in. I was raised by a single parent. My mom works up 2, sometimes 3 jobs. And I grew up on macaroni and cheese and deep fried bread, right? and we loved the stuff. I mean, I could cook it by myself. It was so good. So understanding, the food that you're eating and how your body breaks it down or doesn't break it down, because it's got to do something with whatever it is that you eat, right? So that's a great point. Really understanding, what food is for, what it does for your body. Great point. We only have a few minutes left here, and something that I'm very passionate about is helping people. I'm the people's advocate, especially in the legal world. And it keeps me up at night, helping people, making a difference in someone's life, on a legal, in a legal matter. And, your bio talks about your passions and what you're passionate about. Being an entrepreneur is not easy. If it was, everybody would be doing it. It's really easy to go work for someone else. It really is. So in closing, what are the 3 most important, or the 3 most passionate, aspects of your business? What are they?
I feel like no matter what I do, I always come back to prevention. You know, I ended up in this field after my father passing away. And the reason I went into it was to kind of learn and to help people from losing their own lives early, or also losing their loved ones early from things that are preventable. Can't necessarily prevent everything, but there are a lot of things that we can at least reduce the risk. So I've got a strong passion for wellness and disease prevention. I find it important for everybody, but I feel like especially in females, to help them be able to achieve health, but also their self-esteem. Like,
yes,
to clarify certain things for them. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think we tend to do very drastic things to achieve a certain body type or a certain body image, or what we think will make us better at our sport or our exercise. And a lot of it's just, not only is it inaccurate, but I think it's very detrimental to our health, but also to our psychological well-being.
The mental health, you know, that plays a huge role. Yeah,
I would love to try and be a good role model, and help inspire and educate, you know, females from at all times of life, you know, whether they're a child, but also as women as we get older and stuff. I mean, it's kind of rough. I think we pick ourselves apart a lot.
I agree.
So just good information and trying to improve self-esteem as well as health. And like I said, too, separating kind of what we look like and what our body looks like from who we are. Like, really realizing that there's two separate entities. You know, I don't think it should define who we are, whether you're really thin and fit, or whether you maybe have what society would say is, you know, extra weight. Either way, whatever the case is, I think we need to learn that we have other parts to us than just kind of our outer appearance.
Yeah.
And just because maybe we do decide to work on our weight or our body composition doesn't mean we're necessarily working like something's wrong with us. We're
Great point.
Health, not to improve who we are as people. So being able to separate that, I think, helps a lot. Maybe you do need to lose weight to achieve better health, but you're doing it to improve your health, not because something's wrong with you.
Yeah. Great point. I think it's so important, you know, especially when it comes to us women, you know, and young girls, what we see on television, what we see on social media, you know, these Insta models and these Instagram famous people, and, you know, how they look on the outside. And it's so surface, it's so superficial, you know, because their mentality, their mindset, their ability to communicate, you know, their empathy, their ability to love, their compassion, those attributes are so much more important than, you know, any physical attribute. Because I'm over 40, I do not look the same that I looked when I was 20. You know, things change. It's, you know, it's the circle of life. There is no fountain of youth. So, you know, focusing on, you know, our mental health, what really makes us who we are. It isn't necessarily our physical appearance, because that's changing every single day. Great point. So you do consult with clients, with private clients, outside of your teaching at UNLV. So if somebody was interested in consulting with you and maybe doing some kind of nutritional health consultations with you, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
So at the moment, my personal email address, so it's rickelle.tallent@gmail.com.
Okay.
But it's in the works right now and will be up very, very shortly. I'll have my website, so Tallent Nutrition and Wellness. And I will also have Tallent Nutrition and Wellness Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn accounts.
Perfect.
those
Perfect.
are all coming very soon.
Yes, and we will post those for our viewers that are watching this interview. If you're watching live with us or if you watch the replay, please post your comments, #replay, so we know where you're catching us. I will definitely post all of your social media links and your website link on the YouTube channel after our interview today. Thank you so much, Rickelle. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I know you and I, here in the Vegas Valley, are going to be really advocating for women and building our connections and our networking events that we go to. I'm so grateful to have met you, and I'm so thankful that you came up to me and wanted, you really showed interest in the plus size platform and the plus size movement. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm excited for your journey in this entrepreneurial world here in Las Vegas. We definitely need women like you doing the things that you're doing. So thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for watching today, you guys. Make sure you connect with me on Twitter at The Miss Camay Show. You can listen to all of my interviews on SoundCloud.com / The Miss Camay Show from season 1 in Seattle and season 2, and now season 3 out here in Las Vegas. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you guys next Wednesday at 2 p.m. here on Zoom. Thanks so much, you guys.